So, what exactly is sociology? Well, you could say it's a science of us. It's about digging into all those hidden rules that guide our lives, the invisible strings that connect us all. And it's especially about tackling those massive, messy questions about why our world is the way it is. And it turns out it all really kicks off with one fundamental tension. I mean, think about it. Why is there always a struggle for money and power? It's a question that's been around forever, and it's all over our headlines today, right? Well, it turns out this isn't just random chaos. For the very first sociologists, this constant conflict wasn't some kind of bug in the system. Nope, they saw it as the system's main feature, and they were absolutely determined to figure out why. Okay, so let's dive into one of the most powerful and, yeah, pretty controversial answers to that question. It came from a thinker who basically argued that conflict isn't just a part of society. He said it's the engine that drives all of human history. And that thinker was, of course, Karl Marx. Now, for Marx, the story of human history wasn't really about kings and queens or big battles. It was about one single, relentless struggle. He basically said if you really want to understand any society, you've got to look right past the surface and find its core conflict. So, according to Marx, society isn't some peaceful, happy organism. Nope, it's a battleground. He believed that every single major social change, we're talking every revolution, every new law, is driven by this fundamental clash. And get this clash isn't between countries or big ideas. For him, it's all about two specific economic classes, the owners and the workers. And they're locked in this constant fight over who gets the rewards from all that hard work. And Marx had some pretty specific names for these two groups. On one side, you've got the bourgeoisie. Think of them as the owners, the factory bosses, the people who control all the stuff you need to make things, what he called the means of production. Then, on the other side, you've got the proletariat. This is the huge class of workers who have nothing to sell but their own time and labor. And for Marx, this wasn't just some small detail. This division was the very foundation of, well, everything. But hold on a second. Is all conflict really just about economics? I mean, Marx's theory was incredibly powerful, for sure, but other pioneers in the field started to argue that maybe, just maybe, it was a little incomplete. They began looking at society through a much wider lens, asking questions that totally broadened the scope of what sociology could even be. And that brings us to Harriet Martineau. She was an absolutely pioneering English sociologist who, honestly, is often unfairly overlooked. She wasn't just another theorist, though. You could think of her as a crucial bridge. She took these really dense, complex ideas from early European sociologists and translated them, basically opening up a global conversation about all this stuff. And her impact was just huge. I mean, by translating thinkers like Comte, she let so many more people in on the conversation. But it was more than that. She was a brilliant analyst in her own right. She started focusing on topics that pretty much everyone else was ignoring, things like marriage, family, and the social roles of women. And by doing that, she showed that society's big struggles weren't just happening in factories. They were happening in our living rooms, too. Okay, so we've got these incredible minds looking at society from totally different angles, right? You have Marx focused on class conflict and Martineau looking at social inclusion. But all of this leads to a really fundamental question, one that's at the very heart of sociology itself, which is, so what? We can analyze society all day long, but then what happens? What's the end game here? Is the whole point of sociology just to understand the world, or is it to actually get in there and try to change it? Believe it or not, this one question created a massive split right down the middle of the field. So this divide basically created two different camps. On one side, you have what's called basic or pure sociology. The goal here is just knowledge, knowledge for its own sake. You do the research, you analyze it, you publish what you find, and you let the facts speak for themselves. But then you have applied sociology, which says, whoa, not so fast. This side argues that knowledge demands action. The whole reason we study problems like poverty or inequality is so we can use that knowledge to try and fix them. It's really the difference between being a map maker and being a revolutionary. So that really brings the whole thing back to you, doesn't it? Now that you've seen these different approaches, the fiery analyst of conflict, the inclusive observer, and these two totally different ideas about what the point of it all is, what do you think? What should the job of a sociologist actually be? Should they be an objective, hands-off observer, or should they be an active agent for change? There's definitely no easy answer here, and that exact debate is still shaping our world today.